So we'll get the meeting started with the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do a roll call, please.
Bob Ashworth.
Here.
Richard Kleiwer.
Not here.
Laurel Harkness. Here. Mike Bradley.
Not here.
Jerry Hykura.
Here.
Councilmember Klur.
Here.
Councilmember Collings. Councilmember Stackfleth. Councilmember Globman.
Here.
Mayor Redmond.
Here. I was going to say, is this, I'm not sure what is that.
Do we have any public comment?
Oh, we are doing, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. The reason we called this meeting at the request of the district and with council, and the idea is, hey, let's have a conversation about our unfilled position and the future of being able to pay for services in the city. And I don't know who wants to start off. I can fill you in on the conversations I've had with the district, and or does somebody have a plan on preambling this?
Well, where we're at right now is to come across what we feel is an adequate pricing, how much the city wants from the district and how much we can afford, because we are limited, but yet we do have a fair amount of money in the bank in reserve. But I don't see us going out and trying to raise, for example, Proposition G, unless there is a need. We do not have a need, nor do I see us having a need in a period of 4 years at a minimum. But we're pretty set in what we have and how we're going about it. Mm-hmm. We're glad to help the city, but we're having trouble retaining volunteers. Our volunteers are burning out. Okay? Now, why is that? I'd have to defer to the chief, and he'd be able to explain it to me. But we would like a firm number. For one thing, how much do you need, and how much, and are we going to be able to provide it? Is a real simple way of looking at it. Then, from there, we're going to have to come to some sort of an agreement on the way you folks take care of the people. Let's say we're going to, let's say, anyone that's on your permanent staff on the fire department is going to quit. They give you plenty of notice. There's never been any short notice, and I'm aware of, since I've been on the board and we've been together. But yet, it seems like you take forever to fill a position during it. And I can understand why you'd want to, this is my own opinion, of course, why you'd want to not fill it, where you're saving whatever amount of money a month that is by not filling that position. And it's basically, the way it's set up right now, it's killing our volunteers, and I don't think we're going to have volunteers in any length of time. Go ahead.
If I might. My thoughts on the current situation are probably more dire than anyone's. And I can illustrate that with a few questions here. Chief Burns, how many paid firefighting personnel are on the department right now?
There's 2 captains and 2 firefighters and myself at the moment, and one of those firefighter positions is being flown for staff.
And how many of those have applications to other departments that you are aware of?
Well, one of the fire captains is on his way out. I haven't got a firm notice of when he's leaving yet. The other captain, I believe, is applied to other agencies as well, And then the one firefighter, I'm not aware of anything right now at the moment.
Okay. Are the remaining personnel that you have, are they essentially healthy, uninjured, able to work?
We have about a core 5 to 8 people that show up on a regular basis on the volunteer side.
I'm just, right now, just referring to the paid.
The paid staff, I mean, in theory, we have 3 people on staff, not including myself, that are available on their 10-hour shifts at the moment.
All right. Can you fulfill the mission of the department with those personnel, considering days off, vacations, and training?
It is very difficult if I don't come in extra, as well as pay overtime or do something in the nature of try to pay a volunteer staff for the small stipend we can hand them to cover behind.
All right. Thank you, Chief. So my comment on this is that municipalities that are struggling financially often see a loss of personnel, particularly in public safety, during these difficult times, because it's easy for them to find better prospects elsewhere. And with the current system they have, in the old days, your retirement, you had to stay in that department. That is no longer the case. They can go to another department and maintain their retirement plan. And I expect that once employees see that the cuts that the city has made to their overtime and to their program, I actually expect there to be more of an exodus from the fire department. When the volunteers see that the paid personnel have left because their needs weren't being met, they will understand their devotion to the department that can't retain paid employees, paid trained employees, where their own positions are held slightly lesser regard. Those volunteers will stop their participation. So I think, ladies and gentlemen, you're on the brink of losing your entire department very quickly. And you're going to be unable to provide basic fire services on your own unless this is rectified. Thank you.
When this department was formed, this combination, Matt Mello was a chief, and he wanted to model it after the Susanville Fire Department, which I have no squawk with. The only thing is Susanville is 5 times larger than the city of Mount Shasta. And we may want to reconsider how we're doing it, but when you go to reconsider how it is being done, my input would be to listen to the volunteers that you do have left, because pretty soon they will not be here if things keep going like they are. Now, that's just an opinion, and you're surely welcome to your own. I thank you.
I think it would be good just to give, kind of a little bit of background on how we got here. Melissa has come on, she's done yeoman's work, and I really don't want to be careful. We had a previous finance director it could be difficult, and we were unable to get transparency on inputs and assumptions behind budgets, right? And there was a drumbeat of the district isn't paying their fair share. But there was nothing actually produced to say this is the case. She left, Melissa came on, and, we had a measure that didn't pass, that was public safety related. And what Melissa found is there were quite a few irregularities in how things that were being accounted for, and the projected 24% reserve for this year was non-existent. In fact, we were deficit spending, which we can't do, it's illegal. And we're used to having significant reserves. And so what we had to do at the direction of council is to see how we could cut a lot of money in a very short period of time. And the police department and Public Works, Public Works held off on filling a position they were able to move some of their personnel cost out of the general fund and pay for it through some of the enterprise funds. And the police department stepped up and made very significant cuts. And I had asked Chief Burns to do the same thing. I wasn't getting the response, and I wasn't sure why that was. We finally were able to, have that conversation, and after several attempts, and it just wasn't getting any response at all. But we managed to figure out a way to communicate, and so there was a directive to hold off on filling one vacant position for the time being, and to see about the calls that we go on, and it's discretionary based on the fire department. What are the calls? Say if it was the typical frequent flyer where we act as a transport service for certain folks in the community because of injuries or weight or whatever that is, trying to ensure that those are handled by the ambulance service. Let's do that, but you have the flexibility to figure out what those are, okay? And then fast forward to getting our budget. We still have a long way to go. I hear what you guys are saying, and I believe everything. And I am hearing your worries. I'm trying to be careful how to phrase it, because I'm not casting blame. But Bob and I, Melissa, and Mike sat down, and it's the first time we actually had the contract between the district and the city in front of us. It was a mystery contract. Nobody had seen it. And we sat down, we looked at it. It was signed in 2019. And in that contract, it says that the district will pay, an X amount for now, but will adjust what is paid, so it's the same as, the amount that the city puts in for those personnel. Now, there may be other costs that you guys are picking up that we don't know about it. We don't know how it all settles out. But the marching orders from that meeting with Bob and Mike were okay, we're going to take it back to the district board and talk about it. And that floating a measure, isn't going to be something that, we can do overnight. It's not magic. We can't, print our own money. And then, I didn't hear anything back. Called Bob. He was having some health stuff, and when he was dealing with that, and was going to, follow up with the board when he got himself right, and that's where we've left it. Okay. So, and then we went into negotiations. We had a professional negotiator come in that knows, what are things that the city's been doing illegally, what are things that we need to do that are best practices, and what we learned, is, we took a look at what other agencies in our, areas are, and we said, okay, we can give you a significant additional salary, but it means that certain things need to be given up because, they're not industry practice. One of those things, in hindsight, might have been a mistake is callback pay. But, that if, we have a certain amount of money we can work with, but if somebody comes back to me, or even today, and says, that's going to help us get people in, just the knowledge that we have callback pay will help us get folks in for an equal amount of salary reduction to offset those costs, which I don't think would be a whole lot. We're willing to entertain that, and we'll sign a side letter. But anyway, that's where we are, and I'm kind of at a loss, and that's why we have this meeting to figure out how do we move forward.
Thank you. So 2 points for further questions. Does anybody know if there's a sunset on that partnership agreement? So it could, I'm assuming under most circumstances, we could probably revisit that and through committee and take it back to the respective members and just reevaluate, because you had said, talking about to the chief about discretionary calls. They might be discretionary to you. They may not be discretionary to us, the response calls.
I think I missed the couple words before that. I didn't catch your meaning.
Well, when you're requesting that the chief, cut back on calls, on discretionary calls, we even made no such agreement. We are still paying for those services, and right now we're expecting it. We're open to be able to talk about it.
Yeah.
But no one's told us, hey, we're going to cut down on your call volume and the type of calls you have. No one's asked us our opinion on that. So that is something that needs to be worked on.
Okay.
And if I may, it's not since you've been here. This was going on prior to you, because I can remember Gio Lamana. Okay, his position he was basically the first one to go since we formed our partnership. And that's how money was saved for the city. And I'm not against the money being saved by the city. I'm against our volunteers having to come in more than is necessary. That should be filled by a paid position. But that's just my opinion.
The council hasn't been privy to a lot of the back and forth conversations, so I'm really glad that you guys are here so we can start this conversation. I think what I want to understand is what are the Mount Shasta Fire Department and what is the Mount Shasta Fire Protection District? What is the ask or the need to A, keep morale up, and B, make it a thriving, happy place to work?
Well, the difficult side right now is staffing levels, number one. And with the MOU, the way it's written right now, there's 2 shifts that we can entertain at the moment with the way the budget is set up, but that still leaves a lot of hours uncovered with paid staff. The optimal traction we had there for a little bit, talking with the union negotiator, Todd, Melissa, whatever, was the goal to get to a 48-96 shift, which in theory would have 2 people on shift 2 days a week for 48 hours to run 24 hours a day for 48 hours, which in theory we would end up with 3 shifts, having a supervisor of some sort, a firefighter on that shift, and then a B shift, a C shift. And those shifts rotate by 1 day every week. So that A shift comes back, if they worked a Monday, Tuesday to a Sunday, Monday, in theory, to have that coverage throughout the 24 hours, right? So we would have a response. Right now, the way we're limited is after 6 right now, because they're working 10-hour shifts, 4 10s. Actually, they're working a 12-hour shift on Wednesdays for training with the volunteers to hit that 84-hour marker. But in theory, to retain people, that is the optimal schedule for fire in the long term. Because people get more time with their families, get time with their, technically you get 4 days off. So it's a lot easier than a 3-day with, going home at night. Technically right now, I have no retainment under the current MOU to force the paid personnel to come back after 6. So right now, and I haven't gotten clarification in what I read, and I don't know if Todd did it, because we've had this conversation a couple weeks ago. On the retainment side, after 5 or after 6, technically they can go home, and they're not required to have their pager on, not anything.
So
I
do-
can try to call them back, yes, but there's no guarantee, and that will delay response as well. Trying to be on the phone, try to respond to the incident, and if I'm not around, who's going to do that?
So actually, that isn't the agreement. The agreement is that the fire department gave up callback pay in exchange for additional revenue salary. And the assumption underlying that is, okay, if you don't have callback pay, the expectations are that since you're being paid more, the people that you'd normally be paying callback pay for come in because they're making more in salary. Now, if that is, if the issue is making sure we reinstitute callback pay, we can open it up as a side letter, but we only have a certain amount of money to work with.
Correct. And my overall thought with that is, in theory, right now, I don't have retainment of them after hours. I pick up the phone and hope they answer, and they could tell me no, right? So,
That's not the agreement you guys signed. Sorry.
well, then I have misunderstood, and I don't know if Melissa has a different insight on this as I do. As many times as I've read it, none of my employees are sworn either.
So, I was just asking Bob if the district had been part of the negotiations with the union. We were not, so this is new information for us. So I guess, looking ahead, this would be a really great thing for us to sort of be participating in, and I think having a little bit more dialogue between the city and the district would be really helpful. We really want to just make sure we're supporting the staffing levels that we're expecting. I mean, we've seen the MOU it is old, I get it, you called it a mystery contract, but it's a document, that's all we've got. And if there's, a fiscal gap, then we want to work together to close it, so I think it's basically what
Agreed. And, frankly, I think, I own the fact that I didn't reach out to the district. The district, to me, since I've been here, has been sort of a black box. They seem to be their own entity, and they seem to not. And, I have sporadic communications, and in hindsight, it makes complete sense to have you guys part of these discussions.
monthly. Those are public meetings. They're noticed. It's no different. It's Brown Act. So I wouldn't consider it a black box. So
It's a black box in my knowledge, and now I get it. So thank you.
Corey, real quick, could you explain to me again, trying to understand how it is that they can ignore you?
Well,
So they've.
in
so
theory,
this
it's
is-
kind of like Public Works. If they're not on call on a retainment of what we used to have of a stipend to keep the personnel on staff after hours by,
This is after their 48-hour shift.
they're not on a
during their
48-hour shift right now. We're on a 410s.
Sorry, 410.
So after 6 o'clock PM, technically, the way I read the MOU, and I could be wrong, and I haven't gotten anything in writing telling me that I have, besides requesting their services back by phone, again, that could be just like if your boss called you today and you were off duty, you don't have to answer the phone or even come back in if you don't want to, because there's nothing in writing telling me under their.
That's not true. Here's what's going on. You've got 3 shifts in that contract. There are 10s, there are 12s, and there's a 48 and 96. With the negotiator, the fire department said, okay, those are great, but we're willing to trade callback pay for additional salary. And there is the rub. If you trade that, it doesn't mean it relieves you of that responsibility.
So I'm looking at the contract here, and I agree with the fact that there is no callback in the contract. There had been in previous contracts, which is what sort of binds the person to be available when you are asked to be on call and get paid for that. In addition, our Public Works and our PD contracts include callback time, and they also got increases in their salary. So I don't interpret, I interpret the missing callback time as the way Chief is interpreting that. It would add additional expense. It is in the other contracts. In the other contracts, the other thing that we have that's not in this contract is that if you get called back, you get a minimum of 3 hours of overtime. So not only are they getting paid to be on call, they as well, when they are called back, they get a minimum of 3 hours of overtime. They might only work for an hour, but their contract says that they get whatever the minimum is in that contract. It might be less in Public Works. So I do think that that is a gap that was missed in the fire contract. That's my reading of it.
So please do not, interject. We work as one body, but that is not, those are not the negotiations that took place.
So we can participate in the conversation.
To the chair.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have an issue with callback and staffing. I also want to be cognizant of time, and I want to be able to hear from our front row people too. So I just want to make sure that I'm following the ask. Staffing and the way that the MOU is written is one thing. Is there anything else that hasn't been discussed that we're hoping to accomplish?
The only other thing that I would mention is that we did discuss when we were talking with the union negotiator about adding, so they do have an opportunity to have 3 shifts, if you will, 3 different options of shifts. 4896 being one, the 410s, but that's a little bit adjusted, and then 3 12s. I did an analysis at the time of doing having that discussion, and the part about 4896 is that because of absences and the size of the staff that we have, it actually would potentially cost the city anywhere between $80,000 to $100,000 of overtime. So we had that conversation, and we did include it so that we had that option if we were able to get to staffing levels that would accommodate that. But right now, obviously, we are down staff. And so I think the shift that's working out best is the 410s or 310s and a 12. So there's that consideration about where we would come up with the funding to manage those shifts.
So does the district have revenue to help us with that since we're broke? To help fund a position, to help pay payroll? I mean, or the overtime out of your coffers, or? Because we're broke, so.
I mean, we weren't part of the contract negotiations, so it was hard to, we didn't input on the terms, that it sounds like they were budget informed. So, and I don't know what window there is for any sort of renegotiation on that, or, so, yeah, I mean, we, like Bob was saying, we have reserves, we have revenue. We just need communication. We need to know what the gap is so we can find the solution forward. And I think there's probably a number of different solutions, but we care about the firefighter staff, we care about the volunteers, and we want to make sure that their working conditions are as quality as possible. I mean, that's first and foremost, and for the public safety. So yes, we understand budget constraints, but we do have funding, and if we need to go raise more funding, then we need to know that too. But the district has a different boundary than the city too, and so if the city's budget constraints are affecting the level of service of the overall fire service, then that's affecting the district, and they've not really had a say because we've not been party to the discussions.
And I think we're all in agreement that we'd like to get back to the level of service that we've been at. Totally in agreement. This isn't a quick fix, but the city hired a statistical research firm that's an expert in passing measures. They've done survey research and are compiling a report on what they've come up with in terms of what we can pass as a measure. Unfortunately, it's not a quick fix. We believe, it's a conversation we've got to have with council. Do we go and chase that measure in this off year, which will cost the city upfront money? And, it's typically an election that doesn't bring out a lot of voters, or does it make sense to go in 2016? But we have an approach to make sure that we get, this across the board and get the word out, and that's going to be rolled out. We're going to have a town hall on, on the need, and for folks to ask a question on September 14th. And if we need to, we're going to hold another one a month later in October. And, we've got a plan for getting out the vote because there's limits on what the city can do. But, yeah. And, the county's a different animal. I don't know your constituents.
Well, it's a special district, so it's not the whole county, but
Yeah, right,
so
right.
and on the measure, I've been tracking that, and I know it's a general measure. It's not specific to fire services, but yeah, definitely interested in hearing more about that, and I think we'll try and attend the town halls. And to Tessa's point, I think we want to get to some public comment as well. So.
I'm just thinking, I wish Jeffrey was here to argue against, or explain why he argued against the measure to begin with. Go ahead.
Sure. Just kind of unless I don't want to take time away from other folks that wanted to speak, but I just real quick, Chief Burns, if in your estimation, you said you've got a couple people that are 1 foot out the door or close to it, perhaps, maybe. If there were a commitment made to hire somebody else in the near future, do you think that would forestall them leaving, or do you think that that's been something that's in the works for a while? And I understand I'm putting you on the spot.
Yes and no. I believe, like I said, if we were able to bridge this gap and get back to the level we were closer to, let's say 2 years ago, as well as, the shift statute of that 4896, which accommodates a lot of people, as well as it would accommodate more applicants as well from more of a distance, I think we would be at a lot better stance.
Okay. And then so along a similar vein with the district, I understand that the low staffing levels on the city is causing burnout among your volunteers particularly.
They're basically, it's your personnel now.
The personnel is pretty much, the permanent personnel is ran through the city.
Okay.
District contracts for the services, and that was the overall intent, to bring the two departments back together after their split in 2001, 2002 era. Because both sides were suffering on an all-time level with not enough volunteers on either side. Mm-hmm. So right now, we're running the mutual MOU with the volunteers as well as the staff, which the district contracts X amount of money right now with thought patterns to get whatever services. If that makes sense.
Open it up to public comment. No. I don't see a booth out if you guys just want to yell loud and talk.
So, I'm Tom Hastings. Do you want to come up?
Yeah, we got a microphone there then, I guess, okay.
Most of you know me. I'm Tom Hastings. I'm a constituent of the board. I live in the county. I'm also on Mount Shasta Fire Protection. We are one department. I want to start out really by saying one thing. When that pager goes off at 2 o'clock in the morning, we don't ask who it is. We respond with one intent, that's to serve our community to the best of our ability. I've got 2,000 to 3,000 hours of training to be a captain on this department. I don't take it lightly. I've done this a long time. You ask, who are these people that are starting to go away? I'm 72 years old. I should have already been retired, but we have such slow staffing, I feel an obligation to be here. It's something I enjoy doing. One of the problems we have right now is morale. Now, you talk about this contract and how they signed this contract. Most of the firefighters got that contract handed to them. They didn't know that they lost their callback pay. All of a sudden, they had about a 20 or 25% decrease. Even with the factored in of the raise, they had less money coming in because you took the callback money away. In the last, I think it's 8 days, since the 21st, we've had 30 fire calls, ranging from fire to medical aid, help I've fallen, I can't get up. 15 of those were after hours. I just looked at that this morning. Half of those were after hours. You look at how many people go on these calls, we are relying on Chief Burns to be there 7 days a week in the middle of the night because we're not paying our guys to come out there. We're volunteers. Some have other jobs, other commitments. I travel, we do different things. I can't commit to 7 days a week, 6 p.m. till 8 a.m. I cannot commit to that, nor could you. So we need the ability to have our paid staff on callback pay. Critical staffing. I'm extremely disappointed. I was at a board meeting recently that our district board was not even included in these contract negotiations that directly affected me and my family living over on W.A. Bar Road. That was very short-sighted on your part. We pay a certain amount of money every year. Now, does the board have extra money to help out? There's a good possibility. My concern is coverage after hours right now today. I can't tell you how many times that, I see Corey's that only one that went on a critical call. Now, some of you may know CPR. We do CPR. We do it a lot. It takes anywhere from 4 to 8 people to effectively do a CPR call. I've done over 80 CPR calls in my 20 plus years on a fire. It takes a lot of people. It's not one of those things, we'll just let the ambulance handle it. That's a frequent flyer. We can't do that. We have to go. Okay. So besides the short-term.
The 3 minutes are up, Tom. Thank you. Sorry.
This isn't public comment. That was already over.
No, public comment. This is public comment.
So anyway, thank you for your time.
No worries.
And I hope you consider some of the things I was saying.
Anybody else?
Hello, my name is Stephen Goldsberry. I am also on the fire department. I'm a lieutenant. I feel like there's a history here that not everybody knows, right? We joined both of our departments because we were shorthanded. Now we're back in that same boat. We're shorthanded. The days of the volunteer are dying. Nobody wants to volunteer. I make $10 to go on a structure fire that I could spend anywhere from 1 hour to 12 hours on. And at some point, I have to try and get some sleep to turn around to go to my other job. I love volunteering. I want to continue to volunteer, but it's hard to do both jobs. Now, I want to give a little history of when we became a fire department. In order to be a firefighter for the Mount Shasta Fire Department, you have to live in the 96067 zip code. That means I think we have one paid staff member who owns their own home. That means every paid staff member rents the home because they can't afford to live in Mount Shasta. They can't afford to own in Mount Shasta. So who wants to come work for the city of Mount Shasta as a firefighter when you have to live in the city limits in order to work here? When the pager goes off, because we don't have a living quarters, pager goes off, you have to get out of your bed, get dressed, drive to the station, hopefully not have frozen windshields, because I've driven to calls with my head out the window before because somebody was dying and I didn't have time to warm my car. That's the boat we're in right now. We can't get adequate staffing. The people that do come and work for us, while they're great, just graduated fire academy. They have no training, no real training. And now you're asking our volunteers who are 90% brand new people to respond to calls at nighttime. Our paid staff are the ones who have the training, who have the knowledge, who can properly handle a fire call. I don't know if you guys know that, but you might be getting somebody who's been on the fire department for less than a year making entry into your home to go save your child because our paid staff can't respond to a call or turn their pager off because they're not getting paid. We try and do the best training we can on our 3-hour training on Wednesdays, but you can only do so much training on a Wednesday for 3 hours. So what happens if our paid staff doesn't come? Are we potentially injuring people in the city of Mount Shasta? I totally understand the money. I've been part of this city for almost 20 years. I understand the money, but we have to figure out a way of getting it. Public Works is able to get an on-call pay to go shut somebody's water off in the middle of the night, but we can't figure out how to get our firefighters to respond to calls at nighttime to save people's lives. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Katie Haikura. I'm a volunteer firefighter with Mount Shasta. I've been a member for about 3 years now. And I think I have a unique understanding of what's going on here because I was previously a permanent member of Mount Shasta Fire. And I kind of want to come up here and give a little history on what those negotiations were like because I was also the shop steward. And Melissa, I invite you to correct me if I get anything a little wrong here. Negotiations initially started in April. We didn't hear anything until August. And City Manager Todd did make the effort to come forward and say, hey, we've been doing this wrong, let's fix this, and I commend him for that. We then started our negotiation process, and I think in about February or so, we were supposed to have a meeting to continue our negotiation discussions. That meeting got pushed back for other reasons, and then we didn't hear anything until contracts were getting signed. The last version of the MOU was the last version of the MOU that got signed, and there was very little discussion on it because the city was running out of money for their negotiator, which completely understand. But we were running out of time for a contract. We were going to be contractless. And a point I wanted to bring up, and I think this answers the question on call back and when Corey can call back people. Firefighters are not sworn. We are not sworn in at any time. There is nothing saying that I can't go home and turn off my pager and not answer fire calls. Most of us don't. Mine stays on all the time unless I'm at work. But having those firefighters not sworn in does not commit them to come in. There is no obligation. And that's no fault of Corey or council members here, but I think it's just an oversight of the city that I know had been brought up in the past. I don't know if it's been pursued since, but something I would look into. Another thing is the turnover of volunteers that was discussed recently. A huge thing in the fire service is being able to get your experience, and unfortunately what we're seeing, get out. We are seeing a large number of volunteers who are young. They're 18, 19, 20 years old, and they want to work for big cities. They want to work for other departments. They use us to come here to get that experience, put that on the resume, and then they leave. There is nothing here holding your volunteers or holding your paid staff other than the fact that they live here. That's it. Back in the day, volunteerism used to be huge. You used to want to give back to your community. The volunteer is dying. That's across the nation. This isn't new. And it's not just a local issue. And those 5 to 8 volunteers Corey had mentioned, those are those 18, 19, 20-year-olds. And out of fire, Corey, correct me if I'm wrong, you need more than 6 months of experience riding on an engine. On CPR, you need more than 1 CPR under your belt.
That's time.
I thank you for your time.
My name is Monty Messenger. I'm a volunteer with the Mount Shasta Fire Protection District. We've all talked about the need for money. And what I see with the city, you guys are very good at promoting giving money to the Chamber of Commerce, getting tourist dollars, getting people to visit town to spend their money. But on top of that, they come to town and they get in vehicle accidents. They have medical aids. They cause fires. It increases our workload. So at the same time you're giving money away, because I know the city gives money to the Chamber of Commerce to promote that, which personally I don't agree with. They should stand alone. The city should pay money for the services they provide to the citizens. And I understand you guys need your tax money to do that, but it puts a strain. You know, Castle Lake was a recent call. We had to go to Black Butte. Some of these are outside of our district. But like anybody else, they call us and we go. We have some specialized trained people and equipment to do this, to help these people out. And so when you provide money, tot dollars, you know, to get all these people to show up, which is great. It sucks when you want to go to a coffee shop in the summertime. But it impacts your emergency services, not only the fire department, but the police department, the ambulance. So consider that. When you're giving this money away, would it be better to hold on to it and pay your emergency service, your public service workers, which, by the way, all city, according to the state of California, because I teach some of this at the college, public service workers, disaster service workers, you expect them to be there when the mountain goes, we have flooding, you want to be able to call your people back. And they're expected to do that, and they're covered that by state law. And they're expected to help out. So when you don't have sworn personnel to do that, you can't call them back, and there's no expectation set for them. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, we'll close public comment.
So I think this is worse than I thought. So I'm glad you all came. And one possible solution, to me, it seems like a budget problem. That's the base issue. And my thought was that since Councilmember Stackfleth and I are a member of the Finance and Audit Committee, that we extend that committee to help solve this issue and become a committee of the council that will meet with the Fire Protection District regularly and find a fix to this. So I'm volunteering Councilmember Stackfleth, but that seems to be an obvious first step.
If the board can provide additional money, it's in all of our best interest to do that. But we also would expect to see a financial improvement from the city towards that same goal, because this is in all of our best interest to maintain this joint department.
Well, I don't know how much longer we can kind of keep saying the same thing here with our regular meeting in 5 minutes, but we definitely need to continue this. What is everybody, when can we continue this? At least a few of us anyways to get this done.
We probably have to officially put it on the agenda. Maybe not, since we're just extending the budget. What do you think, Rachel? Do we need a new line item to commit Stackfleth and I to this, or do we just use our current committee and? Okay. So, do you all have, I know Laurel, you have our email addresses. We can coordinate a time to meet. I'd say the sooner the better so that we can get things moving.
Yeah, on behalf of the board, it's really been Bob and Mike that are kind of representing as a sort of a committee ad hoc, and so, but I'm happy to help.
Great.
Network everybody together. But yeah, thank you so much.
Oh, all right. Oh, go ahead, sorry. No, nothing? Okay. Well, then, note this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
No, you walked in right when that started, Tom.